Why is an election putting the Democratic Republic of Congo on edge? Are we seeing democracy in action, or is it a prelude to violence? I'm Imran Gupta, and today's newsmaker is the DRC presidency. Sub-Saharan Africa's biggest country has never had a peaceful transfer of power, and few believe that the next president will take office without facing more unrest. The election has already been marred before the first ballot could be cast, after 2 years of delays created distrust among voters. And then there's the issue of electronic voting machines. It's the first time the DRC is rolling them out, and it's a gamble. Much of the country is without electricity, and it's unclear whether there are enough machines to accommodate more than 45 million registered voters. So, if electoral chaos ensues, could Joseph Kabila step in and stay in office? Because while he can't run in this contest, many believe we haven't seen the last of the longtime leader. Here's Natalie Perhonen.
The Democratic Republic of Congo could be about to have its first democratic transition of power. For many Congolese, opposition presidential candidate Félix Tshisekedi represents their best chance for political change.
Our president returned to the country today, and that is why we came here. Because we know we will help Félix Tshisekedi become the head of this country after winning these elections. Félix will be the president who will lead the country of tomorrow.
We are the winning ticket, as you have heard everywhere. I'm not just saying it randomly.
On December 23, the DRC heads to the polls. It's an election which is 2 years overdue. There's a field of 21 presidential candidates, but these are the key players in the election. Joseph Kabila, he's been president since 2001 and was meant to leave office in 2016 when his mandate expired, but clung to power. His chosen successor is Emmanuel Ramazani Shadary. He'll head the ticket for the ruling Common Front for Congo coalition. He's a former interior minister who is under EU sanctions for alleged human rights violations. His main opposition contender was going to be Martin Fayulu, a parliamentarian and former oil executive representing the Lamuka opposition coalition. But a split in the opposition just weeks ago means there's now another choice for voters. But not everyone's happy.
We need to recognise that these people, the opposition, are fickle. They say one thing in the morning and another in the afternoon. It's sad. It shows immaturity on the part of Mr. Tshisekedi.
Félix Tshisekedi is the son of late veteran opposition campaigner Etienne Tshisekedi. He's running on a joint ticket representing his Union for Democracy and Social Progress Party, along with the Union for the Congolese Nation Party. The opposition is united in its concern about Election Day. There are 46 million registered voters. This will be their first time using electronic tablets to cast votes. But that's going to be difficult, as only 9% of households have electricity. Despite worries about the credibility of the voting process, opposition groups say people must be given an opportunity to go to the ballot box.
The state of mind is that we must, at all costs, wrestle a democratic alternative. That is to say, to achieve this, we need elections.
The DRC is one of Africa's poorest nations, but it is also one of the most resource-rich. Kabila has ruled it for almost 2 decades. He took over from his father, who was assassinated. This election will be the first leadership change voted on by the electorate. But will it be a political era that breaks from the past, or one that continues to be connected to the Kabila legacy? Natalie Perhonen, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined now from London by Alex Ntong. He is an independent analyst on the DRC and Great Lakes region of Africa. And from Leicester is Michael Chibangu. He's an analyst and political advisor for the opposition leader, Moise Katumbi. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us here on the Newsmakers. Alex, let me begin with you. These elections, are they happening on a level playing field?
I think it is probably the best to start by saying that the pressure, the decision to go for election has been really because of pressure from international community. As you know, that 2 years had gone, where Kabila has been trying to extend his mandate. There have been a lot of internal pressure, the church, the opposition, the international community. So on the 8th of August, he announced that he was stepping down. There have been so much concern whether actually the election will be happening. By a great surprise, calendar has been respected up to today. So to answer your question, it is really difficult to say based on the fact that they don't want external observers. It is an issue, especially that the opposition is divided.
Right.
It isn't something you could say that is being organized at some level.
And there's a bunch of things that have caused everybody to hang a question mark over the elections. Let's go through some of them. Michael, let me start with you and talk about the refusal from the Electoral Commission to have any logistical assistance offered by the United Nations as part of MONUSCO. They already have a mission there. Now, when they refused to have the UN help, Michael Chibangu, was that showing sovereign independence or was it showing some sort of insecurity?
It shows insecurity. You ask whether the election was on a level playing field. The answer to that is not. It is an election that from the very start, the people in power have tried to control the whole process, and the refusal of the help from MONUSCO is part of that desire to be totally in charge so that the result will reflect the will of Kabila, who is stepping down. Kabila has decided to step down under pressure, but obviously for his own security, he needs to make sure that the person that he has chosen wins the election. So not only that MONUSCO will not help, but international observers from like the EU or the USA will not be welcome.
Right. And Michael, so correct me if I'm wrong at any point in this thread, right? So you support Mr. Katumbi, you advise him. He's barred from running. He's thrown his support behind Martin Fayulu. Now, Martin Fayulu still believes enough in the process, and Moise believes enough in the process to compete, to say we're giving it a go. So doesn't that tell us that there is an element of legitimacy, given that these opposition leaders are all still competing in these elections?
Well, to this day, we are still calling for a credible election. The fact that Fayulu is candidate, that we support Fayulu, does not mean that we believe that this process is fair. We are asking, for example, for the Electoral Commission to abandon the use of the electronic e-voting system that is trying to implement. We think that this will facilitate fraud. So there are a number of things that are still cause for concern in this process. Whilst we have a candidate that we support, we are not confident that in the process in itself. And it's not just the politician, even the people of DRC. The recent polls have shown that people do not trust this process. They do not trust the Electoral Commission that is organizing the election.
Alex Ntung, the electronic voting machines, is that a problem for you?
It is a problem because up to today, it has not been accepted by the opposition, but the opposition have really, at the end, decided to go ahead with elections as planned. But when you ask opposition leaders today, they're saying, with or without, electronic system, they will go ahead. But then that really sends a confusing message to the voters. In some areas, we are talking about now, less than 3 weeks for the election to start happening. And some areas, as we know, we're affected by conflicts, and others extremely physically inaccessible. And financially, the CENI in August, they still had 20% of the budget. It is incredibly questionable to say how that is going to be implemented, leave alone the argument whether the electronic system is going to be efficient.
Right. Militias are causing havoc in the east. 250 people are dead from Ebola in North Kivu. This is the second worst Ebola outbreak in history. So it's hardly a peaceful situation right now. And they're trying to run an election. Michael Chibangu, let me bring you in here and talk about what's in the control of the opposition leaders. Haven't they got nobody else to blame but themselves, given that they couldn't even unify behind one candidate? So initially you have Mr. Tshisekedi saying, yes, I'm going to support Fayulu, and then he says, no, actually, I want to be the president, right? So the opposition is split. If it goes to Shadari, doesn't the opposition have nobody else to blame but themselves?
In an ideal situation, you would want the opposition to have one candidate. But the main issue here is not whether the opposition has one or two candidates, but it's whether the election that will be organized will be credible. Because in DRC, people want change, and it is unlikely that the people would vote for Shadari because of Kabila has been in power for the past 17 years, and he hasn't done much. He promised a lot of things, but to this day, we're still talking about wars, chaos. We're still talking about part of the country that are controlled by militia. So the people of DRC want change. So whether the opposition have one candidate or two candidates, they are very unlikely to vote for Shadari. And the recent polls have also shown that Shadari really does not have much in terms of support, popular support, that is. So we are concerned mainly about how the elections are going to be held. And we fear, unfortunately, that Kabila has kept tight control of the Electoral Commission, and has refused all sort of support. He has refused to allow even observer from the EU. So you really want to make sure that after the 23rd, when elections are held, the person that the Electoral Commission will announce is the person that he has chosen for his own security, because he knows that when he was in power, a lot of crime had been committed. So you want to protect himself.
Right.
So the opposition is unfortunate that they didn't have one candidate.
Let me ask you about Shadari, because there seems to be this consensus among opposition supporters that Shadari is a sort of sock puppet for Kabila, and that he intends to prolong his power through Shadari if he takes over. But might it be that the man is actually his own person? He's an independent politician. He just so happens to have the blessing of the man who's vacating the seats. Where's the evidence that he's a sock puppet for Kabila?
The evidence is before he was appointed. This is a person that was fighting actually for Kabila to stay in power. To be honest, he has even been sanctioned by the European Union for the role he played. Protesters was killed when he was Minister of Interior. A lot of abuses was done. That's why Shadari has been sanctioned by the EU. This is the kind of person that Kabila has chosen to continue. Not somebody that is going to start afresh, but somebody that before he has even taken power, before he's even president, he's already has his hands dirty. It's already under a sanction list. So Kabila has chosen him because he's the first person that can protect him, because they are on the same, they've done crime, they've all committed crimes, so they both need to stick together. So, and when you take such person, the message, his own message, you see that this is not somebody that wants to bring change, but it is somebody that wants to continue with what they have started together with Kabila. So it is somebody who's been with Kabila since Kabila took over. So for over 20 years with Joseph Kabila. So he's one of the hardcore Kabilists, if I may say.
Alex Ntung, a lot of people had hope when Kabila took over from his dad, Laurent. As we look back on the 18 years, assuming that, okay, after December he's gone, you never know in politics, you never know in DRC politics, but looking back, did he leave the country better or worse off than he found it?
I think there is something that must be acknowledged, is that when he took over in 2001, the country was divided in three. Without talking about other armed groups controlling small areas. At that time, we had RCD Goma and RCD in North, another RCD in Kisangani area. He was incredibly instrumental in in Sun City dialogue, in the peace agreement that brought the different armies together. I guess that's something that should be acknowledged, despite different part of failure to secure the country fully, and responsibility which is shared. Really, we are talking about now. There have been 20,000 human troops. Say the failure of DRC. I'm not trying to justify the government, but that's something that should be acknowledged as a legacy, to bring the larger faction rebel groups together and be able to get them at the negotiation table. that has been something that should be acknowledged following the death of his father.
Michael Chibangu, so we got some context from Alex. Is that context and giving us a bigger picture in terms of the tough job that Kabila took over? Or is he being an apologist for Kabila? Which one is it?
Well, Kabila, it's not as if Kabila chose to allow the rebel group to come. He had no choice. It was a stalemate. The country was at war, and no one was winning the war. So under pressure for the international community, the party came to the table and they found a compromise a deal that allowed him to be elected. So, and since then, things have been going downhill, and we see that the country is now divided again. There's potential of war if elections are not held, credible elections are not held in the coming weeks. Already we've seen that the election was supposed to be held in 2016. We are in 2018, so that's 2 years after. And Kabila, what he started, what he did before, he hasn't done it by trying to stay over. And now the country is even more divided. We don't yet have rebel group, but when you look at the population and what is happening, you see that really the tension there, the potential for chaos and more violence is there. One thing could trigger it, and that's bad election. Alex
Ntung, who's the best man to take over?
I would say that I will come back to what Michael was saying about the opposition. I think I was in DRC last 2 weeks, and something which is really worrying and very concerning. There isn't a right person at the moment to be able to take the leadership challenge in DRC. I know it sounds very pessimistic to say, but both opposition goes in opposition because they are outside of power, they are outside of the regime. So in kind of metaphor explanation. They are on board. If they're out by being if they're taken out, they become opposition leaders. There haven't been some consistency in terms of values. To be able to say, look, this is what we are fighting for. The example is with the Kinki Mulumba. That's 2 days moving to the opposition. The alliance are shifting in a very unpredictable way. And I will not be surprised if by December 23rd, something else is changing. So there is a serious issue of value-based leadership in DRC. And that's what we are facing today. And the pressure from the international community really much more based on alternance, as they say in French. Making sure that the person who's in power is moving. That's not the biggest issue. Again, I'm not trying to justify anything such as Kabila's regime. It is much more important to build from a bottom-up approach, build a strong leadership that could actually be able to sustain development in DRC and peace and development.
Michael, very finally, if Emmanuel Ramazan Shadary, the preferred successor of Kabila, his own hand-picked man, if he wins and there's no widespread evidence of widespread fraud, would you accept it and support him?
Well, we won't support him, but as Democrat, when a credible election are organized and everyone says that the results are credible, of course you would accept that. But unfortunately, it is not the case. You have mentioned Moise Katumbi, who has been sidelined. This is not the only candidate. You also have Mbemba, who has been prevented from running. Already you see that this is a controlled process where Kabila chooses who can run in the race, eliminates the candidate that he fears the most, and is making sure that the person that he has chosen would win. Under this condition, I really doubt that Shadary can win freely. And when you consider what Kabila has promised and what he has failed to deliver, and that Shadary is somebody who represents the system, I personally do not see how Congolese people can vote for a person who represents what they want to change, want to break away from.
Right. It's a massive country with extraordinary importance in the region, especially on the continent. All eyes on the election. A lot of people hoping it goes well. Human Rights Watch is not so optimistic. They said, and I'll end with this, gentlemen, they said, less than 1 month before the scheduled elections, the repression continues. Those responsible for past abuses have not been held to account, and the enabling environment for credible elections does not exist. That from Human Rights Watch. Gentlemen, pleasure having you on the Newsmakers, Alex Ntung and Michael Chibangu. Look forward to talking to you soon. Coming up on the program, could a Sikh pilgrimage prove to be the road to good relations between India and Pakistan? And a Syrian refugee is attacked at a high school in the UK. Is this a case of simple bullying or is it full-blown racism? We talk to the boy's lawyer. For decades, many of the Sikhs in India have only been able to gaze from afar at one of their holiest sites, a white temple just 3 kilometers over the border in Pakistan. But in a landmark decision, the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan inaugurated a border crossing for pilgrims, and they won't need a visa. It's the first time any Indian will be able to freely cross the border since it was created in 1947. So, are we seeing a warming of relations, or as India's ruling BJP puts it, a cynical attempt at scoring political points? Shoaib Hassan reports.
A cause for celebration and a possible chance for peace between perennial rivals India and Pakistan, with a visa-free corridor between the two countries, allowing Sikhs in India access to one of the holiest sites in their religion, the shrine called Gurdwara Darbar Sahib, Kartarpur.
हम एक कदम आगे बढ़ के 2 कदम पीछे चले जाते हैं। हमारे में अभी तक ये नहीं है, ये हमारे में ताकत नहीं है कि हम एक दिन की फैसला करें कि जो भी होगा हमने अपने ताल्लुकात ठीक करने, हमने अच्छे हमसायों की तरह रहना।
The Gurdwara Darbar Sahib Kartarpur was built in Kartarpur district in undivided Indian Punjab in the 16th century. It's built at the place where the founder of Sikhism, Guru Nanak, died. When the Punjab was partitioned between India and Pakistan on August 14, 1947, Kartarpur fell within Pakistan's territory. It's now 4 kilometers from the border with India. Most Sikhs live in India, and the agreement will allow them to visit the shrine without a visa through a fence corridor built from the border to Kartarpur. It will be the first time many make the trip. For years they had to do with a view from hills just across the border. Even though many of the pilgrims' parents and grandparents were born in the Kartarpur district. But Sikhs fled to India during riots across the region following partition. Much of the violence took place in the Punjab province, where Sikh, Hindu and Muslim mobs massacred their neighbours and friends. It laid the foundation for the rivalry that continues to sour relations between India and Pakistan. But the opening of the bridge has led some to hope the relationship will change.
I can see this corridor as a big symbol of friendship and brotherhood. This corridor will make people-to-people contacts. After a long time of disconnection, once again people are connected. And I am thankful to the Indian government and Prime Minister Imran Khan that they are making this happen again.
Politicians on both sides of the border have welcomed the move, with the exception of India's ruling BJP. Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj said her government would not resume dialogue with Pakistan and also said India would not attend an upcoming regional conference.
So that invitation has already been given. But we are not responding to it positively because, as I said, that unless and until Pakistan stops terrorist activities in India, there will be no dialogue and we will not participate in SAARC.
Analysts say the BJP's reluctance to promote talks is political. With general elections to be held in India next year, any dialogue with Pakistan may be seen as a sign of weakness by its conservative Hindu base. Some believe Kartarpur is a good step to soften ties. But others point out that the opening is taking place within days of India's commemoration of the 2008 Mumbai attacks, allegedly carried out by Pakistani-backed Kashmiri militants. And that's just days after militants from a separatist group Pakistan says is backed by India carried out an attack in the business capital Karachi. Or is the relationship between the two nuclear-armed neighbours who have fought wars against each other just too tense for their leadership to be able to build on this moment? Can the corridor wash away the bloodshed that has gone on since partition? Shoaib Hassan, the Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, we're joined in Islamabad by Ramesh Singh Arora. He's a PMLN politician and member of the Pakistan Sikh Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee. In New Delhi is Sriram Sundar Chawlia. He's an executive director of the Center for Global Governance and Policy at Jindal School of International Affairs. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Ramesh Singh Arora, let me begin with you. Temple access, visa-free, Sikhs can cross over the border very soon into Pakistan to visit the holy site. How much does this mean to you?
Thank you very much. First of all, I extend gratitude and thanks to TRT for being invited me on a very historic moment. Look, for Sikh community either residing in Pakistan, residing in India, or Sikh diaspora residing in other parts of the world, this is a great news for them. Everyone is very much excited because on the day when there was a groundbreaking ceremony and Sikh diaspora was there, Sikh community from India who were on visit to Pakistan, they were there. Sikh community from Pakistan was there, and not only Sikh community, the people from different faiths, Muslims were there, Hindus were there, Christians were there, and everyone was excited because this is a great news, and particularly Sikh community was looking for this news for last so many years, around 30 to 40 years for this great news. So everyone is excited over here.
Right, as your brothers and sisters come over from south of the border, undoubtedly major symbolic effects, and I guess it transcends party politics, doesn't it? Because you're a PMLN man. This is the first time I've ever had somebody from the PMLN who hasn't criticized Imran Khan on this program. So what does that tell us?
Look, because this message of peace, message of love, message of humanity, message of coexistence, message to serve the minorities here in Pakistan, there's a message from the Pakistan side, so I appreciate it, and particularly credit goes to the President Army Chief, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, who met with Mr. Sidhu at the swearing-in ceremony of Mr. Imran Khan at the time of his prime ministership. So certainly credit goes to the Army Chief, and we are thankful to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan, who gave this opportunity to the Sikh diaspora, to the Sikh nation who are residing in India to come over to see the historical places in Pakistan, because there is a strong tie between the Sikh nation, between the Sikh religion and the Pakistan, because origin of Sikh religion is from Pakistan. The birthplace of first Sikh master, first Sikh Guru is in Pakistan. The death place, the last resting place of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who stayed in Kartarpur in more than 18 years of his life, that is in Pakistan. So there is a very rich Sikh history in Pakistan. So we are thankful to the present government. So politics and religion, for me, these two are different things. Politics is a right side and religion is, for me, that is left side. So I do not mix politics and religion, and I'm a very different person when you talk about religion and politics. So I have certain reservation, certain criticism on Imran Khan's government. But as long as this Kartarpur corridor is concerned, we all the parties here in Pakistan, all the faiths, we are on the same page that this is a very good news gone from Pakistan.
Okay, and let me bring in Sriram Sundar Chawlia now, because even though Ramesh doesn't want to mix politics with religion, others are mixing politics with religion, and they're questioning the intentions of the Pakistanis. You have members of the BJP saying that the Pakistanis are not doing this for the cleanest of reasons. Is that fair?
I think so. You see, when it comes to state policy, there has been a long track record of Pakistan harboring and sheltering extremist groups which wish to break up India. So be it the Kashmir separatists or be it the Sikh separatists who call themselves the Khalistan movement. So there has been, historically that link. Pakistan has sponsored these extremists against India. So there is a great deal of concern here, especially among the security elites, that opening up this corridor could lead to potential ideological brainwashing of some misguided Sikh youth to try and revive the Khalistan movement, which used to be in its heydays in the 1980s and 1990s. And we know that there are still some elements relating to this separatist cause who are based there.
Okay,
and,
so let me...
recently there have been some terrorist attacks in Amritsar on the Indian Punjab.
Okay, certainly, right. Okay, so let me try and understand this fully.
Spiritual diplomacy, we see value in it and we support it.
Right.
But at the same time, there are major caveats with regard to security, and given the unsettled disputes between the two countries, which are much larger and geopolitical in nature and cannot be resolved simply by opening up a corridor like this.
Okay, so let me be absolutely clear what you're saying here before I pose it to Ramesh. What you're saying is that there's a possibility that you might have Sikh pilgrims who cross over to Pakistan to visit the White Temple, and the Pakistanis in some way are going to turn them or radicalize them in order to revive a Khalistan separatist movement, or maybe even conduct terror attacks in India. Is that what you believe?
I think there is a distinct threat of that, because we have seen the diaspora militant groups among the Sikhs mobilizing lately and saying that we need a 2.0, a second version of Khalistan to restart. There is this whole notion of 2020. There is a vision for restarting the secessionism.
Okay, got it.
I think
India has
let me go to Ramesh and get a response. Corridor,
okay,
but I think we are going to be very, very cautious about it.
Ramesh, does that sound like absolute nonsense to you, or is it a valid security concern from the Indians?
It sounds nonsense not only to me, it sounds nonsense to everyone who has a heart. Because look, I already said, and the whole of Pakistan, they are saying that we don't do any politics on Kartarpur issue, because this issue directly relates to the religion. And this issue relates to the feelings. Because look, what is happening? People from Sikh faith, they come over there on the border, they stand over there the whole day, and they pay the homage to the Gurdwara Kartarpur, which is 4.5 kilometers away. So now the gentleman sitting in India, he's talking about Khalistanis, he's talking about the Sikh diaspora. So that Sikh diaspora doesn't belong to Pakistan. That Sikh diaspora belongs to India. So India needs to look into that, what bad they did with them, because now all of those Indians who are Indian citizens, now they are residing, now they are Sikh diaspora sitting in Canada and America and talking about referendum 2020. That is because discrimination in India. What happened in 1984? Because there was attack on Akal Takht Sahib and there was nothing. They destroyed the Akal Takht Sahib. Then what happened in Delhi? That 1984 Sikh genocide, no one can forget that Sikh genocide. Because of Indian policy, now Indian people who are residing outside the India, not residing outside the India, all of them who are residing in India, now they're talking about what happened with the Sikh community, because all of those who are the culprits, who are involved in Sikh genocide, who are involved in 1984 attack, now they are not in the jails. They are living free and they are moving here and there. No one is taking them to the task. So that's why they are worried. And if he's talking about Pakistan, what India, just let me finish. What India is doing in Pakistan, what India is doing in Balochistan, what India is doing in Afghanistan. So these all things are doing by India, and now they're asking questions and raising fingering to the Pakistan.
Chawla,
so rather than to do that, they should think about it.
Mr. Chawla?
Yeah, no, I think, see, our friend is clearly an establishment Sikh who has been recognized in the Pakistani polity, which is dominated by the military. So I can understand his sentiments and where he's coming from. But it's clearly a misguided view, in my opinion, because the condition of the Sikh minorities in Pakistan has not been so admirable at all. In fact, their numbers have been declining over time. There have been a series of targeted assassinations against Sikhs. They have reduced in number. Historically, they used to be over 50,000. They're now down to below 30,000. And, across the Pakistani polity, there's been pressure on Sikhs to convert to Islam. So although our friend belongs to one of the leading parties there, so therefore he has to adopt this position. As far as the diaspora goes, in a way, he's providing a soft justification for the secessionist movement, which we consider terrorists, because he's saying that there are grievances and therefore people are mobilizing, which is the official line. And that is all the more reason why we are going to be cautious cares about Kartarpur?
But perhaps
because there are Sikhs like him. Who is Gopal Singh Chawla? Who is Harmeet Singh Happy? Why are these guys finding shelter and official sanction of the Pakistani military establishment? He needs to respond to these because these are internationally prescribed terrorists who are finding shelter there.
Okay, let's forget the
doesn't mean it's going to go away, and frankly, there's no justification for terrorism.
Can we forget the diaspora just for a second? And I want to focus on the two countries right now and their policies and how they're trying to sort of calibrate their policy moving forward. Is it a fair analysis, Mr. Chawla, that even though Modi supports it, he can't support it too much, this corridor, ahead of elections? Because if he shows too much warmth towards the Pakistanis ahead of elections, he loses his hardline nationalist Hindu base. Is that a fair political analysis?
I don't think it's about hardline nationalist Hindu base. In my view, you see, Indians have become sick and tired of the policy of engagement by India, where we take the first step and then we are rebuffed. So just go back to 2015 December, Prime Minister Modi flew into Lahore and met Nawaz Sharif, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, extended a hand of friendship. And within a few weeks, we had a major attack on one of our military bases. And therefore, we had to call off the whole thing from across the border. It happened from across the border. So Indians, most of us believe that there is a history of backstabbing whenever we have shown interest in settling disputes. And therefore, more wary, once burnt, twice shy. That is our situation now. And we are going to be, whether there is election or not, I think Mr. Modi is quite realistic about the prospects of peace, especially under a leader like Imran Khan, who we believe is a puppet of the military there and will not be interested in any long-term settlement, because peace means end of the business for the military and the military establishment there.
And it's good to get that perspective because it helps us understand the thinking in the Indian establishment as well. Let me bring in from Lahore, Rasool Bakhsh Rais. He's a political science professor at LUMS University. Thanks for joining us, sir. And I'm sure you've heard some of what has been said over the past few minutes. Do the Indians have a right to be skeptical of this gesture from Pakistan?
I think they have a right to be skeptical, and they can exercise that right. But I believe that Pakistan has done the right thing to give this corridor to the Sikh pilgrims. They could watch this and fulfill their spiritual satisfaction from the Indian side of the border, but now they can visit it. This is a very sacred place for the Sikhs, and I think it should happen long time back. That's good that it has happened now. I don't know what the skepticism is all about. It is a corridor to get peace. Indian cabinet has decided to open it up. We have decided to open it up, and I think it is going to be a reality. If Sikh community, which is a minority and persecuted minority in India, and their places of worships like Golden Temple have been attacked by Indian forces, and where there was a massacre of Sikhs. So if they are giving this opportunity to link with their spiritual heritage in Pakistan, that is a great thing.
Okay, let me bring in Ramesh Singh Arora once more. Ramesh, I know you've said over and over again that this transcends politics, even though you're a PMLN man, you support what Prime Minister Imran Khan is doing. Tell me what you make of what the Foreign Minister said. Foreign Minister Qureshi said Imran Khan bowled a googly to the Indians here, right? In cricketing terms, for those who don't know, you expect the ball to go one way, but it deceives the batsman on the other end and goes the other. Imran Khan then comes back and says, no, I didn't bowl a googly. Doesn't that feed into the fact that the Indians feel played? They feel they can't trust the Pakistanis. Do you accept that, Ramesh?
Look, I have my reservation on Foreign Minister's statement. He should not give such sort of statements while there is a bilateral dialogue, if that is started between the two countries. So Foreign Minister needs to rethink about it, because giving any such sort of statement. But I would like to give more something on, like my friend from India said, he's taking me with the establishment, he's talking about that he's pro-Khalistani. Look, Indian Supreme Court has given a verdict that Indian Sikh community can demand Khalistan. So certainly they are asking for the Khalistan. Mr. Sidhu, he's not Pakistani, he's Indian national. Mr. Man, he's not Pakistani, he's Indian national. So they are demanding Khalistan because they don't have rights. Look, what the Indian Constitution says, Article 25, Part B says that what is Hinduism, all the Buddhists, all the Jain math, all the Sikh math, they are Hindus. So you are not going to give them identity. If Pakistan is giving me identity and I introduce a bill in Punjab Assembly for the Sikh Marriage Act and that private member bill is unanimously passed by the Pakistan, certainly I will praise for the Pakistan. Why I will praise for the India? If India is doing anything good, because what happened, Indian federal cabinet passed Kartarpur corridor and now there is a criticism going on.
Mr.
So
Chawla.
rather to pinpoint someone, you need to look into that what exactly you're doing in India with the Sikh community.
Siram Sundar Chawla, come in.
Yeah, I'll only say that our friends in Pakistan are spinning a good yarn about genocide and persecution of Sikhs in India. I think this is a very outdated concept. The Khalistan movement and the violence and the counterinsurgency happened more than 30 years ago. There is no repression since then. India is a democracy. It has far greater freedom for religious minorities than you have in Pakistan itself. You're seeing the Baloch insurgency, you're seeing the Ahmadiyas and the Qadianis and the Sikhs themselves who are actually being reduced from sizable numbers to nothing. There is a kind of extinction. There is an extinction agenda that's ongoing, and it's a genocidal campaign. So there's no question. See, the ones who are talking about minority rights should look inward. The whole world knows that this is a hotbed of terrorism and extremist Islam, and they need to control those things before they preach to India, which is rated as far superior in all forms of freedom of expression.
Gentlemen, I want to take a breath. I want to take a breath and I want to take a beat here. I want to take a beat here, and I want Rasul Bakhsh Rais to kind of look at the big picture for us here for a second, because we're out of time. So this is going to be the final word, and I apologize, but time has flown by, right? So let's look at this. There's clearly a lot of issues. We have a small example of a lot of the issues here. A lot of hatred, a lot of baggage that has gone on for 70 years, a handful of wars, issues of Kashmir. Both countries have nuclear weapons. There's a lot of bad blood and long memories. Could this be the spark, Rasul, to create the thaw that could help the two nations sort out those other issues down the road?
Exactly, that is the intention. That we want peace and we want best of relationship with India. And Prime Minister Imran Khan, in his inaugural speech, he said that he will make all efforts to normalize relations with India, improve relations with all neighbors. And Pakistan cannot progress without normalizing relations with neighboring countries. And we are willing to take 2 steps forward if India takes 1. And this is the step that we have taken without expecting anything from India, because we believe that this is in the interest of the Sikh community, which is a minority.
First, hand over terrorist masterminds. That step is enough. We don't need 2 steps. Just take 1 step. Stop sponsoring terrorism.
Well, this is, again, the recent incidents that took place in Karachi, where terrorists attacked.
Please don't live in denial, because the more you are in denial about your image and your problem as a sponsor of terrorism, the more you are digging your own grave.
Stop terrorism in Kashmir. So then you can talk that Pakistan should stop.
State terrorism has repressed your own minorities, and you need to wake up and face the reality, which is that you have been ostracized. You have been ostracized by the international community. You are facing pressure from all sides.
You made your point, sir.
Rasul,
I apologize. Rasul, I apologize. We're completely out of time, but we got the gist of what you had to say there. Yes.
What I was saying was that the terrorists mastermind who attacked the Chinese consulate in Karachi is getting treatment.
It's a Hafiz Saeed, and he is your house guest.
Okay, listen. We're going to go down this rabbit hole, and I don't have time.
You are the largest sponsor of terrorism in the world.
I appreciate you all
both in Afghanistan and in India. Stop that, and you will move forward. We can have peace.
Rasul Bakhsh Rais and Ramesh Singh Arora. It's been a pleasure having you all on the Newsmakers. Thanks again.
It broke my heart of how the young boy, he walked away with dignity. He didn't fight back or anything, but it did break my heart. That could have been my child. That could have been anybody's child.
There's been an uproar over footage of a Syrian refugee being attacked at a high school in the UK. The video, which went viral, shows an older student pushing 15-year-old Jamal to the ground and pouring water in his face. The aggressor has received hundreds of death threats, while online right-wing campaigners are attacking Jamal's credibility. Well, joining me now in London is Tasneem Akunji, the lawyer representing Jamal's family. Tasneem, good to have you on the Newsmakers once again. Obviously, we see these videos, appearing in our Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds and so on. You're close to the family. You're the lawyer representing the family. What happened in the build-up to it and at that moment, according to the best available evidence?
Well, at this stage, I need to tell you that the boy who is the protagonist in the video, he has been arrested and summoned to court. So, speaking about the incident itself falls under the judice rules, and so it's going to be difficult to talk about any aspect of that. In terms of leading up to it, Jamal and his family, they came to the UK under a UN program from Lebanon, where they had originated from Syria about 2 years ago. Jamal and his sister were put into that particular school, and very quickly thereafter they started being the subject of quite extensive bullying. Now that bullying carried on for over a year and a half, and culminated in the events that we've all seen, really.
Okay, and it's important to hear the parameters from you in terms of what you can talk about and what you can't, and also hearing that the boy has been arrested. Is it clear to you that Jamal was bullied for being a Syrian refugee?
Well, he's been very clear, and so is his sister, both of which were in the school, that they were bullied, and being a refugee and their ethnicity as being Arab and Muslim as well. All of these differences with the other students were picked upon as a subject matter thrown at them for bullying purposes.
Yeah, there are others who look at the video and think that how different is this from all sorts of bullying all over the world? This is as old as time itself. Maybe it's not about political or cultural reasons. Perhaps this is just about an older kid, a bigger kid being a jerk, bullying a smaller kid. Is that a fair interpretation of that video when people see it?
Well, I mean, that would be a fair interpretation of what sort of George Bush did to Iraq as well, if you want to scale it up or scale it down to the individual or to the nation and countries. On one view, let's say the behaviour has been called in the video waterboarding. Now, in the UK government tangentially had been involved in having individuals rendered and put into Guantanamo Bay, where they were waterboarded. And the UK has spent millions of pounds compensating those people because they accept that what happened there was very wrong. But then we can't then say, here's a behaviour practice that requires a state to apologise, and then see the same practice aped by children in schools and say, oh, well, it's just bullying.
What should be, yeah,
it wouldn't have got the, it wouldn't have got the public sympathy and outcry that it has if it was just simple bullying.
Right. Okay, and that's interesting, because I wonder what should be under scrutiny here, or who should be under scrutiny? The bully or British society for creating this context in which this happened?
Well, if we look at the statistics, the coalition government, which is a complex of the current government and a previous party that stepped away, that was some years ago. They took the requirement, the legal requirement, to report bullying and keep statistics around it away from schools. So it becomes very difficult to see the trend in bullying directly, but there are statistics around the number of students who've been excluded from schools because of bullying. And in the last 2 years, we see a particular spike in increases of incidents of bullying, and going back even 2 more years, you see a more gentle spike culminating in the one that we have now. On some indices, it's a 30 or 40% increase in bullying in simply the last 4 years. Now, there are a lot of other factors. If we look at schools and children, they don't really exist in a vacuum. They exist within the context of home, local society, and national society, as well as the television. And many have commented that maybe the nature of our political discourse, so how adults and responsible adults on the face of it are having a discussion in the public sphere, is certainly affecting our children. And we mustn't also forget the impact of online bullying and now, video bullying. It appears that this is where one of these videos came from. And we see a ramping up of the extremities of behavior towards people generally. We've seen a huge amount of Islamophobia in the UK. We've seen rhetoric from key politicians really calling names in a very childish manner,
right.
very publicly about a community. And so it's no real surprise that children then respond to those signals given by adults and ape that.
Tommy Robinson had a few things to say after he saw the video, and you're suing him for defamation. Tell us why.
Yes, because he's a liar. It's really that simple. He repeated lies about a child in circumstances where the child was a refugee, a vulnerable individual, on top of being a child which is vulnerable, then brought to the UK where they're supposed to have sanctuary, then being bullied mercilessly for a year and a half, and a grown adult man called Mr. Robinson decides to make up and tell lies about that child for his own political and social gain.
And very finally, tell me what it means that it seems as if everyone wants a piece of Jamal. A lot of people have reached out to you, people have wanted him to appear on their radio shows and so on. What does that say about what's going on right now in the UK?
Well, I'll say Jamal's situation has touched a nerve. The UK, as I say, has become quite polarised in its politics. There's been a huge rise in the right wing, and I think that when you see someone like Jamal, who's a very, very sensible, mature child, and sensitive despite all he's been through, when you see the absolute victim being treated that way, and you know in your heart that that's got something to do with what we've done to this country, then I think that's why we can explain the public outcry. It's partly guilt about where we've taken this country.
Tasneem Akunji, good to have you once again on the Newsmakers. Thanks for joining us. That's all for this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. You can check out more of our stories on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Remember to like, follow and subscribe. Next time, OPEC produces more than a third of the world's oil. So why is Qatar becoming the first Gulf nation to leave the bloc in 50 years? Until then, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.